Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Sea serpents in Oregon. Sea serpents are a staple of Oregon's coastal culture. Ever since the 1900s, an unidentified sea creature has been repeatedly seen around the mouth of the Columbia River. Even further back, Native American tribes told stories of all kinds of sea serpents, from Oregon's coastline to Vancouver Island. Real reporting wasn't going on in the West Coast until very early in the 20th century. As soon as papers started being printed, tales of sea monsters began to spread. The earliest report of a sea monster in Oregon that didn't come from a Native American source was 1905. The Sunday Oregonian published a story titled "Caught by a Savage Sea Toad," an even great white serpent of the Malheur. In 1906, there was a piece from the Oregon Sunday Journal discussing how sea serpents were not summer resort delusions. And in 1913, there was an Oregonian article about how sea serpents were more reality than myth. The real sighting started in March of 1934, when an unknown creature was seen by the lightship Rose. It was described as about 40 feet long, with its body slender and slick, just like that of a snake, and its neck at least 8 feet long. It opened its mouth, looked at the ship, and then was gone. The crew members wanted to pursue the creature, but the captain was afraid it might sink the ship. There have been lots of similar sightings since, but no verifiable evidence of any kind of monster. Most people who have lived on the Oregon coast for long enough are convinced there is something out there lurking, but nobody has ever been able to prove it. Number 9. Devil in the Lake. Archaeologists were recently left baffled when they came across the remains of a devil in a Russian lake. They didn't find the actual remains of a demon, but it certainly looked like one. It's been described as the Russian Loch Ness Monster, and nobody is really sure what it is. The lake is 4,500 miles from Moscow, deep in the Siberian wilderness where most people never go. The water is icy, and locals claim it's haunted by a mythical monster. The lake is called Lake Labinkir, and the supposed sea creature has been sighted multiple times over the decades. Rational scientists have dismissed the creature as nonsense, saying whatever the thing is, it's almost certainly a fish, a kind of reptile, or some sort of amphibian. In 2013, a scientist named Victor and his team allegedly discovered the remains of a mysterious animal. They found the jaws and skeleton of this creature and supposedly haven't been able to identify it. The bones hint at some kind of unknown, never-before-seen animal, one that looks vicious and could explain the legends of the devil in the lake. Number 8. The Beast of Loch Ness. The Romans arrived in northern Scotland in the 1st century. When they got there, they encountered the Picts, a fierce Highland people who were covered in tattoos and lived in tribes. The Romans considered them to be barbarian savages. But more recently, we have been learning more about the Picts. The Picts had something of an obsession with the animals of their world. They depicted them on pieces of stone, what are now considered incredible works of ancient art. They drew everything from birds to rodents so accurately that every single animal the Picts carved into the rocks of Scotland has been identified, except for one. There have been carvings found throughout the Scottish Highlands that date back thousands of years, and that show a very strange creature. The beast has a long muzzle, flippers instead of feet, and kind of looks like an aquatic elephant. The carving suggests that the Highlands, the area around Loch Ness, was home to a very real aquatic monster that the Picts had seen before. This very well could have been the Loch Ness Monster, and it may have been that people actually saw this beast around the time of the Romans. It's not totally out of the question. After all, plenty of animals have gone extinct over the past 10,000 to 2,000 years, many of which would seem almost unbelievable if we didn't have their fossils. The old Pictish carvings might actually be the best proof we have that the Loch Ness Monster is, or was, a real animal. Number 7. The Blue Hole Monster. It was on February 25, 1972, that the story of the Blue Hole Monster was published in The Reporter. A group of tourists from America and Venezuela were diving near the legendary Blue Hole off the coast of Belize when all 4 of them saw the creature. It was huge, as confirmed by every person present, and reminded them instantly of the Loch Ness Monster from Scotland. The monster supposedly arched its back, reared out of the water like a dragon, and then dove at incredible speed deep down into the dark blue hole. It had the head of a snake, its eyes were huge and red and shone like flashlights. And finally, the witnesses said it was the longest sea creature alive, and unlike anything they had ever even imagined. The craziest part is that this monster has never been seen again, at least not that we know of. There has never been another report like the one from 1972, which almost makes it more believable. The fact that only one group of people saw the monstrous serpent in the blue hole makes it seem legit, like there really is a truly elusive monster living down there. Maybe they just got lucky and saw it for a few seconds before it dove back down into its underwater lair. Number 6. Shape-shifting sharks. Great white sharks are without a doubt the most terrifying sea monsters that we know actually exist, and we have learned a lot about them in recent years. A new study has shown that not only do great white sharks have 300 serrated teeth used to cut meat, they can also shapeshift, or rather they can change their color as part of a camouflage strategy. A great white shark can camouflage itself like an octopus, only just not quite as convincing. Scientists figured this out by performing experiments in South Africa. Shark scientists used a decoy seal to entice sharks to come in for the attack. They also had a specially designed color board with 3 different colors on it: white, gray, and black. When the shark lunged out of the water to try and attack the seal decoy, the team took a photograph. They repeated the experiment over and over with the different colored panels in the background. What they learned was that depending on which color panel they held up, the shark was a different shade. If they held up the black panel, the shark would darken its skin to become as dark gray as possible, and if they used the lighter panel, the shark's skin would appear noticeably lighter. The consensus is that sharks, even if they can't go from blue to red or gray to yellow, can indeed change their color to help in their endless hunt for food. And now for number 5. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to say a big thank you to Shashi Oja and Tracy Gilbert for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about terrifying sea monsters. Number 5. The Goose Killer. Christian Grammer has been skippering boats in the United Kingdom for decades. In the summer of 2022, he witnessed something that he could not explain. He also wasn't the only one to witness it. He and several other people in the Lake District saw with their own eyes wild geese get dragged under the surface of the water at the local lake and down into the depths. The geese appeared to be the victims of some kind of underwater monster, something that nobody has laid eyes on. Christian told the BBC that he literally watched the geese disappear. He and his crew members watched in disbelief as geese were yanked down in the water as if by the long tentacle of some creature hiding at the bottom. There was no disturbance on the water, no sign of an animal, and yet the geese were being pulled down effortlessly. We still don't know what's been killing birds on the lake, and locals have since been warned not to let their kids or dogs go swimming there, and to just stay out of the water in general if they know what's good for them. Number 4. The Lake Ontario Monster. Lake Ontario in Canada has been called the Bermuda Triangle of North America. There have been multiple disappearances, a lot of mysteries, and nobody is really sure what's happening in this great lake. In 1975, Ron Scott left the Picton Airport flying a Cessna 172. The sky was clear, it was perfect weather, but the plane suddenly banked sharply, as if an invisible hand had grabbed the wing and pulled it down. Scott managed to right the aircraft after about 10 seconds, but was shaken from the experience. All these years later, he still doesn't know what in the world grabbed his wing and almost crashed his plane that day. In 1952, Royal Canadian Air Force pilot Barry Allen Newman fell from 20,000 feet into the lake and was never recovered. Reportedly, there are as many as 500 ships and over 40 planes that have suffered similar fates and vanished underneath the water of Lake Ontario. The lake has one of the highest concentrations of shipwrecks and plane crashes in the world. Some say there is a mysterious gateway to oblivion hiding underneath the lake somewhere, a vortex which sucks planes and boats down into its depths to die. Others say there is some kind of monster living in the lake, something that's been preying on sailors and pilots for hundreds of years. Number 3. The Napa Sea Monster. The Napa Sea Monster supposedly lives in southeastern Cyprus, around Cape Greco. And while there is pretty much no evidence to suggest that this creature actually exists, it's still discussed quite a lot among the locals and has a prominent place in local folklore. The Napa Monster has been seen many times, and just like the Loch Ness Monster, no quality photographic evidence has ever been produced. And also, just like Loch Ness in Scotland, people come to Cape Greco every year, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious beast. Napa is the name of a small resort town on the water, and Cape Greco is a national forest park renowned the world over for its natural beauty. This place is home to sea caves, unique species of flora and fauna, and deep waters where a monster could most certainly hide. It's such an exotic and fascinating landscape that anyone who spends enough time here can see how locals would believe there are monsters lurking just off the shore. The biggest issue here is that nobody is really sure where the story of the Napa Sea Monster came from, and in fact, nobody can even agree on what it looks like. Some say it resembles a monstrous crocodile, some say it's long and slimy like a sea serpent. Some even think the monster is the legendary Scylla from Greek mythology. The Scylla appears in Homer's epic Odyssey. She is a female monster who supposedly lives in a cave at the end of a narrow strait. She has 6 heads, each attached to a really long neck. Her mouth is filled with sharp teeth, and she uses those teeth to crush the bones of sailors who get too close to her lair. It's highly unlikely that there's a female sea monster living in some underwater cave, but she may very well be the inspiration for the stories. There could really have been, at one point, a strange marine animal living here. Strange enough, the legend of it has lasted all the way until today. Number 2. Hook Island Sea Monster. The Hook Island Sea Monster is also known as the tadpole creature. According to those who have seen the monster, it looks like a giant black sperm with a gaping mouth filled with sharp teeth and a pair of giant eyes on the top of its head. The creature is also 90 feet long and lives off the coast of Hook Island. The very first sighting of this creature was made in 1964 by Robert Le Serec and his family. They were on their boat when they saw the creature slithering over the water with what appeared to be an injured tail. By the looks of it, the monster had been hit by a propeller and gouged. It had skin like a shark, pale green eyes, and no fins, spines, or flippers. The near size of it, though, is what really caught the family off guard, as they claim it was as big as a blue whale. Unfortunately, this was the only sighting that we know of for the Hook Island Sea Monster, and it's a bit hard to believe. However, there is no proof that it's a hoax or that the family was motivated to make up the story. In all likelihood, Robert and his kin had probably been exaggerating. They could have really seen a sea serpent, just not one that was 90 feet long. Number 1. The Fearsome Ichthyosaur. The ichthyosaur was most likely the largest sea beast that ever lived. The ancient remains of one of these enormous marine reptiles was recently discovered in southwestern England, and it was so big that it's almost hard to believe. The fossils showed evidence of an animal that grew to be 85 feet long. To give you an idea of just how truly big that is, it's roughly the size of the biggest blue whale ever recorded at 90 feet. The blue whale is the biggest animal of all time, including all the other dinosaurs and marine reptiles that have ever lived on the planet. Ichthyosaurs were sea reptiles with bodies like dolphins, snouts like huge needle-nosed pliers, and a constant hunger for blood. They were true predators that could eat anything in the ocean, and they weren't shy about it either. Some of them also had heads the size of a grand piano, so imagine what all they could fit in their mouth. Unfortunately for these great titans, they died out a long time ago. The animal just found fossilized in England lived 205 million years ago. Their fossil record stopped 25 million years before the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. While many encounters describe other ocean reptile-like creatures such as plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, there were stories and folktales from the Orkney Islands of strange sea creatures that had a body like a horse and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Of course, it's hard to say what exactly this animal could be. 2 fishermen were working on their boat when the sea monster suddenly raised itself out of the water, but it was so sudden that they couldn't give a good description. The more superstitious people believed it was definitely a sea monster, but what kind? Who knows? Thanks for watching! Do you believe in sea monsters? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!